history proves that people need sports the most. You can go back to post 9/11 when there was a World Series game that delivered the highest ratings in a number of years, even after the Katrina event, when the Saints returned to the Superdome and delivered an 83% increase in ratings, the first NHL work stoppage, et cetera. There's always this huge desire for sports coming from fans. What was different this time is that sports stopped for a long, long time, and that left the leagues, the fans, the owners in a much different position. And what I can tell you is that I think all of those people did a really terrific job in trying to figure out how to wade through this no sports environment.
When we think about the value of sports to marketers, I come back to scale, to the audience composition, and to the incredible emotional engagement of sports. So when we talk about scale, in terms of sports and sports programming, that is some of the most watched programming content across video platforms. Put in streaming, put in linear TV. Sports is one of the most dominant generators of viewership across the board. And it's also predominantly, almost exclusively watched live. So you're showing live content to a very highly engaged, attentive viewer. And with sports on almost every night, there are multiple scalable opportunities for advertisers to get involved with sports throughout the year.
Sports viewership came to a halt in March of 2020, days before that March Madness tournament. And so with that, our measurement and our insights team delivered daily viewership updates to key holdco leadership and marketers so that they could understand where are the sports fans going, right? And how could they continue to advertise, especially with everybody inside. Viewership was on the rise and marketers needed to reach those sports fans. And so that's really where data as our backbone and our set-top boxes came into play. And we were able to deliver this in real time to the buy-side community. We know there became huge pent-up demand for these loyal sports viewers. And so in the back half of 2020, during the starts and the restarts of many of these seasons, there was a tremendous explosion in sports viewership and sports-related content.
One of the things that's always been really unique about sports is that between the level of interest, both around live games, but also what I mentioned about all of the interest outside of the game and off of the court, it really gives advertisers, and I think continues to give advertisers, even during this time of the pandemic, an opportunity for a always-on investment, whether the games are on or not.
The big opportunity is for brands is surviving and thriving in this hybrid world that we're going to live in, where live events and live entertainment, attending those are going to be very important. But so is playing in a virtual world and brands and advertisers being present where people are congregating around social and digital platforms. I think that's the big thing for the sports industry is how do they best play in that virtual and digital environment alongside the live environment where they have thrived for so many years.
Sports has definitely evolved a lot over the past few months. It continues to be an effective reach vehicle across all platforms. Their ESPN research team does a ton of work around fan attitudes and behavior. And the good news is that around 90% of the US population still are identifying themselves as sports fans. So that's an amazing number and one that we hope will continue into the future. In terms of pent-up enthusiasm, we've definitely seen that, especially as it relates to the return of sports in the late summer and fall. And we've been able to address that need for sports fans with unparalleled talent, resources, and reach. And we've continued to entertain and inform when it comes to sports fans across all the ESPN platforms. We found ways to be nimble and continue programming even when we were on hiatus with sports over the summer, and continuing to enthuse and engage fans has been definitely our mission over the course of the past few months, and definitely thrilled that sports is back in a really big way.
I think if you look at sports and the history of even like a sports marketing, it started as really an experiential space, in and around the stadium, and hospitality, and that. That has all been put on hold, right, during this time. So we worked with a number of clients of how do we get more innovative of how we engage clients and brands? How do you create and market outside of those 30-second pods, which is something we've always looked to do anyway. But what other opportunities have been come out of this to create some storytelling for the brand that is authentic and involved, and we certainly do it on an ongoing basis within live sports.
Sports is a very, very important part of a number of my advertiser portfolios. The broad reach is certainly a big part of that, but also just the passion of the people who watch and consume sports. There are studies that show when you align with a certain sport and a certain team, that brand favorability, it tends to increase. So that's something that we look at, and we want to make those alignments so that fans are going out and buying our product.
So I think what advertisers really most sought in this COVID environment was the ability to deliver impressions to them. That was the most important thing, and we saw that throughout the entire resumption of team sports, individual sports in May with NASCAR and through the fourth quarter. They needed impressions, and sports was probably the single most important repository of those impressions. With some of the challenges of not being able to execute on-site sponsorships in the manner in which we had originally negotiated, advertisers very much worked with us. We wanted to deliver to them as much value as we possibly could, considering all of the obstacles with which we were confronted.
I think the pandemic created the opportunity to pivot and actually compress the timeline, to do things in a quicker, faster, more agile fashion, which really benefited all of our clients. And I think that's one of the things that has been great about coming out of the pandemic. It's this renewed spirit of partnership, where it's not about saying no, it's about saying yes and. So how do we build something together? And the reality is, not every network, not every client will be a great fit, but there are so many that there's always a solution that we can come together to solve all of our problems with.
Whatever you're a fan of today, you can find that sport. So that will lead to some fragmentation, and that, maybe it's not 10 million people all focused on one game. I think we see this a lot with baseball. It's while it's the national pastime, it's really a local sport. You're rooting for your home teams. And I think what the OTT platforms have done is give people access, again, to more content than ever before, more games, more pre-game, post-game analysis, things like that. And I think younger audiences like that because they want to be in control of that experience. I also think it puts a lot of emphasis on highlights and what is the viewing experience for the next generation. So I think there's only upside to it from an advertiser standpoint. It's the addressability. It's getting that passionate fan where they want to be, as opposed to the opposite way. But I think that the viewing experience is going to really change over time.
Sports remains such an important anchor for advertisers who either want to target specific sports content or take a more audience-based approach and target those viewers wherever they're viewing the content. And what our aggregate set-top box data from Comcast allows us to do is derive really important insights into viewing behaviors of those sports viewers. And what we've done is we've translated those insights into a sports matrix to help our advertisers find adjacencies to their audiences in order to continue to reach them successfully. What that really means is we can use the power of our Comcast set-top box data to better construct campaigns that continue to kind of follow the sports audience across programming in a really reliable and a consistent way.